Welcome back to the channel. In today's dream diary, the encounter was at a campsite that was either human or was it something else. This is the only time I've had a threatening skin-to-skin encounter. Around June, my friend and I decided, along with our girlfriends, to go camping. On the day of the trip, we were packing our gear into the car. After we finally loaded everything, we got in the car and put the address into the GPS. We set off on the trip, and after 3 hours of driving and 45 minutes of listening to my friend and his girlfriend argue, we finally arrived. We got out of the car, and my friend and I began unloading. After getting my stuff, I started to grab my girlfriend's belongings. Meanwhile, my friend asked his girlfriend why she needed 3 bags for a one-night camping trip. She smiled, opened one of them, and revealed an ounce of weed, pre-rolls, and other goodies. The other 2 bags contained her favorite snacks and clothes. Now that we knew we had weed, we needed to find a campsite far from other people. It took until sundown, but we eventually found the perfect spot. We decided that after setting up, we'd eat hot dogs and smoke a blunt. We began building a campfire to light the area so we could set up our tents, but we quickly ran out of wood nearby. I offered to gather more while my friend stayed with the girls. I set off on my search and, after about 2 minutes, found some sticks to use. As I was picking them up, I suddenly felt someone grab my wrist. I looked up and saw a man with a blank expression. For a man, his fingernails were surprisingly long, and he was digging them into my wrist while trying to grab my other hand. I turned my head away to avoid seeing his face and screamed for help. My friends shouted back, saying they were coming. As soon as they shouted, I felt the pressure on my wrist ease. I wasn't struggling to keep my arms down anymore, so I turned around, and the man was gone. Terrified, I ran as fast as I could back to my friends, telling them we needed to leave immediately. I didn't even explain myself at first, I just wanted to get out of there. We quickly packed up and began the long walk back to the car. As we loaded our bags into the car, I explained what had happened, which scared them enough to make them hurry. I had taken a picture of my wrist right after, but my iPhone broke, and since my iCloud wasn't backed up, I lost the picture. A few days ago, I had an experience that I can't seem to shake. I was dog-sitting for my boyfriend while he was away on a backpacking trip. His home is in a semi-remote area, located at the bottom of a hill behind a few arches of property. The house is right next to a highway, with a small rural neighborhood opposite. The area is both sketchy and safe, with a close-knit community but people often keeping to themselves. There are many abandoned or dilapidated homes alongside well-kept ones, a typical countryside neighborhood. So, I didn't feel unsafe agreeing to watch my boyfriend's property and his dog. Hennessy is a 115-pound mix of American Bulldog and English Labrador. He's all muscle, and ever since I started dating my boyfriend, he's become very protective of me and my own dog, Remy. Remy is a 57-pound poodle mix, and as a dog groomer, I often give her silly haircuts with bows and everything. Essentially, one of my dogs is very intimidating, while the other is not. Due to Hennessy's strength, I can't walk him and Remy together, so I usually walk Remy first, then take Hennessy out afterward. We walk for about 30 minutes each, and I prefer walking Hennessy later at night because I feel safer with him as it gets darker. This brings me to what happened a few nights ago. I was nearly finished with Remy's walk when I got a strange feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and when I looked around, I noticed a tall man in a hoodie standing about 30 feet back, near an old, run-down house. The hoodie seemed odd. It's early August in Northern California, and it doesn't get cooler than 87 degrees in the evening, especially with the sun still setting. I tried to brush off my unease, reminding myself that I tend to be paranoid from years of reading Let's Not Meet stories. But as I kept walking, the sun continued to set, and the streets grew darker. I glanced back occasionally and noticed that the man was keeping pace with me, maintaining that 30-foot distance. If I turned a corner, so did he. If I sped up, so did he. When I reached the highway, I crossed just before a speeding car passed, hoping to put some distance between us, and it did. But he kept following me. I walked as fast as I could toward the house, not wanting to look back, but now I could hear his footsteps on the gravel. By this point, Remy had noticed him too and started barking and growling. I forced her to keep moving, and thankfully, we made it back inside. I slammed and locked the door, hoping that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Moments after I shut the door, I felt someone trying to open it. The dogs heard it too and started barking, as they always do when someone's at the door. There's no peephole, but I can talk to whoever is on the other side since it's a pretty thin door. I yelled out, asking who was there, and through the barking, I heard a man's voice say,
"I love your dog. Can I meet her?"
The way he said it was incredibly creepy, like there was no emotion behind it, as if he'd rehearsed a line. I yelled back, "No," and asked him to please go away. He paused for a moment and then repeated,
"I love your dog. Can I meet her?"
He started trying the door handle again, pushing against the door. By this time, Hennessy knew something was wrong, and so did Remy. Hennessy's hair was standing up, and he was growling and gnashing his teeth. At that moment, I don't know what came over me, but I threw Remy into the bathroom behind me and grabbed Hennessy by the collar, keeping him close to the door. He was still barking like crazy. I heard the man repeat that he wanted to meet my dog. I yelled out, "Leave." He paused, then slammed into the door. I saw the door move, and at that point, I unlocked it and opened it just enough for Hennessy to get halfway out. He was going berserk, his teeth clacking as he chomped toward the man. The guy clearly wasn't expecting Hennessy. He stumbled back, almost falling over, cursed, and scrambled up the hill as fast as he could, disappearing from sight. I managed to pull Hennessy back inside and called the cops to report what had happened. I never got a good look at the guy, and the police said there wasn't much they could do, but they took my statement and said they'd contact me if anything came of it. I'm so thankful for Hennessy. After everything, I snuggled up with him and Remy that night and cried because it hit me how terrifying it was. The next day, I went out and bought Hennessy the biggest bone I could find from a pet store nearly an hour away. He'd earned it. I also got something for Remy. I don't know why this creep didn't get the hint with 2 dogs barking inside. My guess is that he didn't realize there were 2 dogs, or he assumed both were like my puffy poodle and wasn't afraid. I'm thankful the guy didn't have a firearm. Looking back, I probably should have just called the cops and kept the door closed. But I hope that after seeing Hennessy, he'll know not to come back. If he does, I'll let my big sweet boy tear his arm off. Subscribe.